And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPcast. Good morning to everyone hanging out here in the chat on YouTube Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 a.m. We got Erika back. Erika?
I'm back.
How's
what
vacation?
What did I miss?
Kamalenomics, which I think we're going to get into again. But,
all right.
And I didn't feel great about this. We kind of bashed on Lord of the Rings and you weren't here. So it kind of felt like, say to someone's face type thing. So do you have a defense of Lord of the Rings? Are you a Lord of the Rings person before we get too much hate?
Do I need to offer a defense of the Lord of the Rings? I think you two need to offer a defense of your behavior trash talking my Tolkien. I don't feel like I'm the one in the defensive seat here. No, I mean, Josh, I don't expect you to, to see the Tolkien-esque, but Pogo, I'm disappointed.
Understand the nuances of elves.
Classical education, man.
True, but I was public schooled up until then, so.
All right.
No,
I mean, I think, were you trash talking the movies or the
everything? It's just boring to me. I just don't like fantasy with little people. I'm 6'1", 300. I'm not into these little pixie things or whatever they're called.
He's a Viking guy.
Trolls and stuff.
Pixie things.
He likes Vikings.
Hobbits?
Well,
whatever they are, yeah.
Many things of many shapes and sizes have descended upon Chicago for the Democratic National Convention.
And I'm here.
And Josh is in Chicago. So Josh, have you been attacked yet? Or did you join the protests? What's your approach?
I said I will not accept the nomination of the Democratic Party. I am not running.
Very magnanimous of you.
I mean, look,
I
tell you this. As I was coming into town, I haven't seen any of the protests, but as you won't believe this, as I'm driving into Chicago, what do I see? The bus for Bobby Kennedy Jr. I'm not kidding you.
Oh, nice.
I drove right up to it. I'm like, what is this bus? It looks so weird, like $ Bobby. I'm like, it can't be RFK Jr. Is it really for real? And I look and I'm like, yeah, it is. That was something else on its way to Chicago, obviously, to kind of stir the.
I thought they kicked him out.
So everyone and their brother is going to be in town, I guess now. So why not? I like to go where the crime is. I mean, the action is. I mean, you see this? I mean, the Democrats they're so bizarre. Okay, so as they're getting ready for this convention, several things that you need to talk about. First of all, they boarded up windows all over the place. Okay, so it's like, are we just accepting the fact that Democrats, right? If the left gets mad about something, they just have permission to destroy private property. So, hey, get ready. Here come Democrats. Better board up your windows. That's number one. Number two, they started this parade where they dressed up as abortion pills, like Mifepristone. It's like, what?
I got that too.
You guys say that we're weird? You guys are weird. Hey, I'm dressing up as a death pill. Take this pill to kill your baby. This outside
the convention center, they had a giant. Oh yeah, there they are. They had a giant IUD, blow up IUDs. That's weird.
Why don't they roll the euthanasia death cards down too? That'd be just get it. Come on, let's go.
I think everything. My tweet on it was that the JD Vance's weird attack line has aged like a fine wine.
Mm-hmm.
We're like sour milk. I mean, these guys are freaks.
So that was.
There's that. I mean, there's that, and then obviously,
well, Josh,
did you see this too?
You're not going to talk about the strangest.
They have created. They built a wall all around their convention center. So now, wait a minute. Now, am I to understand that building a wall is a way to keep people out? Is that effective? I don't know. I feel like the Democrats aren't welcoming the stranger.
Well, definitely not, because they're also requiring IDs for you to get inside the wall. And I don't mean IUDs. I mean driver's license. You got to show your photo ID.
Racist, Erika.
I know. I thought IDs were racist.
Wait, I've also reliably been told that IDs are white supremacist.
I love it.
So I don't. Yeah. This is strange.
It's almost like they're lying.
Oh, yeah. So much lying is going on.
Oh, shout out! I don't know if this. I think this is someone who watches this show, but someone put under my tweet. Are you trying to say that it's almost like they're lying? We've reached broader audiences, baby.
Free loop mug for that person.
Free loop mug.
Do it.
Toss it out. So yeah, I had that under my kind of weird stuff section of today's show, but the weirdest among all. I mean, all those are kind of normal weird shenanigans from Democrats. But interesting new electoral strategy dropped. We have free abortions and vasectomies will be available to DNC attendees in Chicago. This is sponsored by the one and only Planned Parenthood.
Not only that, but did you see the headline yesterday? All of their vasectomy and abortion appointments are completely booked in full.
Yeah.
Like they said, we're not taking anymore. And
I had someone on Twitter, they said they tried to sign up to like prevent a spot basically from happening. And they're like, I couldn't, it was already booked. Wow.
So sickening. I mean, that's like demonic level sickening.
Shout out to Fred in the chat. He's like, it's like a scene from Dante's Inferno.
It is. Yeah. Like the hell part. Yeah. Like the bottom circles.
And I just cannot get over too, like, there's so much nailing and washing of teeth for good reason over the RNC platform. One second, Josh. Over the RNC platform, people saying that, oh my gosh, Republicans aren't pro-life. And then Democrats kind of had a moment where like, oh, we're the pro-life ones. No, see, they're abandoning you, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, you're going to say that outside of a bus performing a literal abortion at the convention that's supposed to be celebrating your vision for America. Your vision for America includes sterilizing your voter base through vasectomies and then killing them through abortions. Like, how is this a long-term strategy? And where's the joy, may I add, which is the big draw to the Kamala hype, is this joy preeminating. It's like the angriest people all just send it upon the DNC. Crazy.
See, actually, you're right, and that's echoes what Tony says in the chat. He says that's a plan for longevity for the party, like to kill your own children. Like it doesn't make sense, And that's actually the one article I read. I think it was National Review, talking about how the arguments about abortion that was because in the Playboy magazine in the late '60s and early '70s, as the country was trying to wrestle with this, and obviously Hugh Hefner was in favor of abortion because he probably paid for hundreds of them or whatever. But the argument the one person wrote in, and it was the last time, he said, wait a minute now, if you like selling magazines, you don't want to kill your future potential subscribers. Like, why would you be in favor of this? And it was like the last time they ever published anything on the issue again, and they never touched it again. It was like, I kind of feel like gotcha on that one.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think it's obvious, though, that the Democrats' plan for the longevity of their party is to import their future voter base. I mean, that's the whole illegal immigration thing. And I don't know. Did you guys? I got back and I saw that Elon Musk and Trump had a conversation while I was out on the lake, and I looked into it. And the first I only listened to like the first 15 minutes of it. It was pretty funny. I mean, it's Trump and Elon, so it was great. But the first part was all about the assassination attempt, and they went riffing off of how illegal immigration saved his life because he was looking up at the graphic of illegal immigration. But seriously, I mean, the Walls' whole thing, he's like, if they build a wall 20 feet high, I'm going to build ladders 30 feet high. And so, yeah, they're going to kill off all the children of the people living here, but they're going to just import the workers for their communist utopia that they're planning to build.
So I just need a taller ladder to climb in and get to the Democratic National Convention then.
Yeah, exactly. If it's 12 feet, Tim Walz is coming.
But you guys, we're almost making this in jest, but it has actually encouraged that type of behavior from the supporters. I mean, if you look here, we have thousands of activists descending upon Chicago to protest the event. I mean, you look at the AP article here, American propaganda, as I call it. Thousands of activists expect in Chicago for Democratic Convention to call for Gaza ceasefire. Now, if you look at this picture, what pops out to you other than the Gaza flags?
Oh, I see a trans ideology flag.
I don't. It's so interesting,
hybrid, though, right? It's Gaza and
it's Gaza and it's abortion rights. So it's crazy to me. And I even saw like there's a full schedule of protesting. So like the event itself dropped a schedule. And the protesters were like, we're going to drop our own schedule. I have that here too. So we have Stand with Palestine, End U.S. Aid to Israel, March for People's Agenda, Stop Police Crimes, Community Control of the Police Now, Money for Jobs, Schools, Healthcare, Housing, and Environment, Not for War, Immigrant Rights and Legalization for All, Defend the Right to Unionize and Strike. So all of those are like somewhat unrelated, it seems like, but all under the flag.
We have to remember, what is the purpose of all this kind of protesting stuff? Everyone understands that the media will give free programming to all left-wing causes. So if you're protesting BLM, if you're for BLM, that is, for abortion, for Palestine, all this stuff, they give you free media coverage, which is worth, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, right? You want to march against guns. They'll cover it, right? If there's conservative causes that would advance the conservative cause, like take, for example, maybe, I don't know, the March for Life that's been going on for 50 years, they'll cover it on page, like, section D, page 48, and like, see, we covered it. But they don't give much coverage to it. But then 5 Dorcasons with tiki churches in Charlottesville, and they give it, wall-to-wall coverage, because it's like, oh, this is how we can make Republicans look bad. So it's almost like, it's a game. It's almost like the media, again, if you start to understand that the mainstream media are all partisan Democrats, then everything else makes sense. They're just the press shop for the Democratic Party.
Yeah. One of the things I checked when I got back on Sunday, and I was like, oh, I wonder if anything happened, like any world leaders were assassinated or resigned, abdicated, nothing of that. But I also wondered, did Kamala Harris give her press interview yet? Did we have any word from Kamala Harris? And
she did.
I didn't see anything. I just was wondering if you guys. Oh, did she?
Oh, man.
Can you update me? Update me.
Could I even possibly do it justice? Like, the cadence in which she speaks is so hard for me to replicate. Other than that lady on SNL does a good job. It's really crazy. And it was so funny. I saw people trying to use that as a gotcha. Like, oh, I thought Kamala Harris wasn't doing interviews. Looks like she did one. But it really was the worst answer I've ever heard. It was specifically on the child tax credit. Of course, in the nicest possible way, a reporter was like, hey, how do you plan on funding the child tax credit? How's it going to pay for the big expense? And she answered, for the first time I've seen her answer a press question. Let me look that up.
So this wasn't even a press event, though. This was like she's walking somewhere and a reporter.
It was post stump speech. Yeah, let's see.
But did you see the reaction that the mainstream press had to the child tax credit?
Yeah, we're going to get into that for sure, Kamalenomics, because Erika was gone for that. I want her perspective. But here is the clip.
Can you give us a sense of what other policies you want to unveil going forward?
Sure. Well, I mean, you just look at it in terms of what we are talking about, for example, around children and the child tax credit and extending the EITC. It's at $6,000 for the first year of a child's life. The return on that investment in terms of what that will do and what it will pay for will be tremendous. We've seen it when we did it the first year of our administration. We reduced child poverty by over 50%. So that's a lot of the work. And then what we're doing in terms of the tax credits, we know that there's a great return on that investment. And when we increase home ownership in America, what that means in terms of increasing the tax base, not to mention property tax base, what that does to fund schools, again, return on investment. I think it's a mistake for any person who talks about public policy to not critically evaluate how you measure the return on investment. When you are strengthening neighborhoods, strengthening communities, and in particular the economy of those communities, and investing in a broad-based economy, everybody benefits, and it pays for itself.
I'm sorry. What?
It pays itself.
I'm sorry.
When
what?
Republicans say that, it's voodoo economics, but
right. It's like someone said, just keep repeating return on investment and you'll sound really smart.
Yeah.
Like that.
She took like one finance class in college. It's like Finance 101, ROI.
Well, yeah. Well, that didn't answer anything.
So it seems like there's a reason why she hasn't been trotted out to the press. So she did answer that. And before we get into the economics of all this, I did want to point out a few more things. So we have a schedule for the DNC, and these are all going to be on our radar for sure as we continue throughout the week. But if you take a look at speakers, there's themes to each day as well. So Monday, we have for the people. We have President Biden. He's still the president, for those who forgot. Dr. Jill Biden, Secretary Hillary Clinton, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Tuesday, we have a bold vision for America's future. President Obama, Michelle Obama, Second Gentleman Emhoff, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Wednesday, we have a fight for our freedoms. Governor Tim Walz, President Clinton, and Speaker Emerita Pelosi. Thursday, August 22nd, we have for our future.
Speaker Emerita.
Vice President Kamala Harris nomination and acceptance speech.
Oh boy.
That's what we got popping this week. But I did want to ask too, Josh, and this is kind of maybe the insider thing. So typically the point of a convention, obviously other than fanfare to get people fired up, is for delegates to vote for who's going to represent the party going forward. Now, as I understand it, this has already been kind of done in a weird fashion.
Kind of.
So done. It was a online roll call, I think, which has never been done before.
Well, they did, if you remember 4 years ago, they did the roll call all across, because it was Zoomed or whatever, like all the different
because of
states.
COVID or whatever?
Yeah, because of COVID or whatever. So they're like, let's just do it again.
But that's already done.
Again, the extensive reason behind, here's the thing. It's sometimes you have institutions that outlive sort of their usefulness or whatever in a way, or they just dramatically change. Because you have to remember, it used to be, before we had mass media, television, internet, all that other kind of stuff, political parties would nominate, they'd have to get together all across the country and come to a city, whether it's New York or Chicago, Cleveland or whatever, and they would hash it out. And there'd be a few people running for president, and they'd have to come to some sort of compromise or whatever. And then it's at that convention where that party elects their leader. But now it's not done that way anymore. And there's no real drama at the convention. There's a little bit of drama in 2016 when Mike Lee was going to try to, mess things up and try to prevent Trump from being the nominee. And that didn't go anywhere fast. So the idea is, the conventions now, and it's been this way for ever since TV for the last 60 years, they don't want any, you got all the cameras running. You don't want to broadcast any division. We're all on the same page. This is what we stand for. This is our person, or this is our candidate. This is all the ideas that we're championing, and it's, off to the races. So all the, discussions, debates are supposed to happen, during the primary, but there was no primary because Biden was intended to be just the nominee, right? He gets renominated, but then at the last minute you switch out. And so here's Kamala Harris, who, by the way, has won as many primaries as I have.
Congrats.
We have the same number of presidential primary victories. And so then, where's this debate? It's just like, it just happens. But she was the vice president. So I guess I get it, that's fine. But now you've sort of forestalled any debate or discussion, and it's going to play out, I think, a little bit in the streets here. We'll see.
Thank you for that explanation. And you bring up an interesting point too. She was the vice president, which it feels like in all of her rhetoric, she's trying her best to take all of the credit from the previous administration and yet none of the blame. It's a really bizarre dance.
Vice presidents always have, which is why vice presidents don't often get elected president.
Interesting.
George H.W. Bush was like, he was like the anomaly. And it was because you had 8 years of Reagan just kicking so much butt. Like, okay, I get it. But Nixon was vice president under Eisenhower. He ran for president. Didn't happen. Humphrey was vice president under Johnson, tried to get elected president, came close, didn't happen either. Both those guys were close, but it didn't work. Now, Nixon tried again 8 years later, he got in. But it's tough, just look at the number of people who have been vice president that tried to run for president. Al Gore, Walter Mondale. It's not an easy thing to do because you've got to do this delicate balance of saying everything my president did right, I like, and everything he screwed up, I don't like. And so you're left with this situation where Kamala's got to be like, oh, on day one, I'm going to do all these great things. And everyone's like, well, what have you been doing the last, 3.5 years? Did you see the clip yesterday on Fox News Sunday, JD Vance? JD?
Are you talking about the Jeffrey Epstein clip?
Yeah.
That was so good.
No, I don't know the Epstein clip. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking, maybe he had one of those. I'm talking about the clip where he specifically was trying to talk about this dance that Kamala's trying to do by saying, I'm going to start all anew. I just shared the link with you. I think it's worth playing. I think this is, if Trump Vance hammer this point home consistently.
Yeah, let me see if I can grab it.
I think this.
Did you send that to me on Slack?
I just did.
All right, gotcha.
I think this is. I think this could be this is the right framing. You've got to explain it in a way that makes sense to people. And in this clip, he was on Fox News Sunday. I think he did such a good job, in fact, that the host, Shannon Bream, who's a little bit more on the conservative side anyway, she was just like trying not to wow, this was really good.
Yeah,
this guy knows what he's talking about.
He already implemented tariffs, which brought back 12,000 American factories were built during Donald Trump's administration, and prices were low and take-home pay was high. The entire argument of the Kamala Harris campaign boils down to forget how good things were when Donald Trump was president. Forget that we had rising take-home pay. Forget that we had low inflation. Forget that we had peace all over the world. And somehow, if you give Kamala Harris more power than she already has, she's somehow going to do something different than she's done for the past 3.5 years, Shannon. The most absurd thing that Kamala says at her rallies is, on day one, I'm going to tackle the food and housing affordability crisis in this country. Shannon, day one for Kamala Harris was 3.5 years ago, and everything that she's done has made the affordability problem worse. We cannot give her more power and more influence. She's just going to do more of the same, which has already made the affordability crisis for Americans very, very real.
Yeah, that smile. She was trying her best.
Good. That was so
She
good.
smiled. She can't help it. She's like,
Yeah.
dang, that's good, bro. I mean, that is the central argument that the Trump Vance ticket needs to hammer home every point, every day. Like, hey, they're trying to make you forget how good this was when we were in power, and everything was so much better. Like, why? And then we can see with our own eyes how everything's seemingly falling apart over the next 3 years. But now we need, Kamala communist price controls, like, with
Comrade
grocery stores.
Kamala.
It's like,
Oh, it's ridiculous. I think that the strategy has to be, you don't allow her to put any daylight between her and the Biden administration, which is one of the historically least popular administrations among the whole country. I mean, we saw the complete ennui and lethargy before Biden abdicated, basically, wherever he is now, before she took over the nomination. There was no energy from their base, and just the Biden administration, Kamala Harris, it has to be Harris Biden all the way, and that's the winning strategy for the Trump administration.
So unpopular that they literally had to remove him from the ticket to replace him at the last second.
Right.
A total desperation Hail Mary. Like, it's hard to overstate how unpopular Biden was. It's crazy. And the administration
and
itself.
continues to be. Except no one's thinking about him anymore, so they don't even have a thought about him.
I know.
Where is he?
I think that JD Vance clip I was talking about, he said, like, putting Kamala in charge of bringing prices down is like putting Jeffrey Epstein in charge of child trafficking. And I was like, damn, that was a good line.
That's a good line.
It's like JD's been on fire recently. But so in the next section, I'd say one of the ways in which Kamala Harris has tried to distance herself from the Biden track record is especially in the economy. And it felt like her so we covered this early Friday and a lot of these reports are coming out, but then she actually gave the speech. And now there's been a lot more talking points discussed on a lot of different ideas, some old ideas that maybe have resurfaced under new branding. And so some of those, I just have bullet points here because I want to get Erika's thoughts on them as well. Construction of 3 million new houses, $40 billion fund to help local governments with the housing crisis, elimination of medical debt for millions of Americans, first ever ban on price gouging for groceries and food, cap on prescription drug costs, earned income tax credit of $1,500 for low-income jobs without children, $25,000 subsidy for first-time home buyers, child tax credit of $6,000 for the first year of the baby's life, $3,600 for other kids, notably stolen from JD Vance. And then also we just played the clip of her trying to say how she's going to pay for it, and it didn't really come to fruition at all. But I have to and before I get to your reactions, we have the Washington Post. So we're not talking about, right wing.
The Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post.
No. Yeah.
Right?
Well, Washington Post opinions. So we have the Times demand serious economic ideas. Harris supplies gimmicks. I mean, universally ripped from the left, right, and center. The one in particular being price gouging, which is a new way of saying price controls, which has worked 0 times in recorded history and always leads to bread lines. And
when I first saw this, I thought it was an op-ed that someone called an editorial. Like, no, it can't actually be the editorial board of the Washington Post. Could it be? Really? Wow.
It
That's
is.
impressive.
I mean, this is the first mainstream media criticism I have seen of her. And I think it's telling that the first time she tries to say anything substantive, like, here's my economic plan, she just gets hammered from her own shills at the Washington Post. I mean, this is...
I mean, I shout out to someone in the chat. I think it's Tony. He always talks up it's not the Ruthless podcast, although I like those guys. They're all business guys. And so I pop over there, and they're not necessarily conservative. They definitely have a left-leaning guy on there, but they're all very smart financial guys. Gosh, I'm blanking on the name of it. Maybe Tony will help me out. But basically, the one guy was like, yeah, I'd like to talk about the policies. And he had a picture of a Soviet bread line behind him on a Zoom background. And he's like, this is exactly what I think of it.
I watched that.
And then he went through the St. Louis Fed. He's like, these are the real reasons for inflation. And it was all tied exactly to the timing of the Inflation Reduction Act, which guess who signed that into law? Kamala Harris. It has nothing to do with these grocery stores price gouging. And then as we talked about in the other show, Josh, this was your money line, and this has just gotten better over time. Grocery stores make a profit margin of like 1%, 2%,
right,
at most 4%. Like it's one of the most complex, dynamic, competitive markets out there right now to feed Americans. And so to say like, you know, these guys are just sitting in their chairs making tons of money off the back of some widget, they're literally feeding the country. And so what even is price gouging? Like who can determine, why should a government bureaucrat determine what is gouging? Like it's just anathema to the free market. So, it just got destroyed everywhere.
For me, like my initial reaction was with the ban on price gouging for groceries and food. That one, to me, as someone who walks through grocery stores once a week, like I'm responsible for our family's food budget. I think what I've seen is, you know, things got really, really bad and they're still pretty bad, but we've actually seen different grocery stores become a little bit more competitive with each other because as things got so bad, people start coupon shopping again. And stores have been forced to kind of do their own price caps. Like chicken has pretty much frozen. Get it? It's frozen. The price is frozen for chicken at like $2.99 a pound. And that's just like every grocery store around here. That's what chicken has to be in order for them to be able to, you know, keep their customers coming in. But as people, so it seems like this is not the market to be attacking or going after because it's been tried before in history, right? We've seen it in Cuba. We saw it in Venezuela, which we were covering actually right before I went out on vacation. And it's a no-brainer to me that caps on prices for food would be the last thing you want to go to. The other one I wanted to react to as well was her plan to help the housing market. So yeah, like I see the construction of 3 million new houses. Okay, I get like if we're in a time when the demand is really high and there aren't enough houses and the prices are just through the roof. I get that. So constructing more houses would seem to make sense, but then giving a subsidy for first-time home buyers, that's going to increase the demand side, right? Am I getting that right? Not an economics person, but
right.
It seems like that's going to just drive prices up more if you have more people with more money to pour into their home buying. I mean, it just makes, it seems very schizophrenic to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the Wall Street Journal said, like no state has spent more in housing than her native California.
Right. Okay.
Yet it has the nation's highest home prices as a result of, you know, sundry regulations. It costs more than $1 million to build an affordable housing unit in the Golden State. That's what they want to give to you. It's like all these regulations that sound really good, like, oh, let's make sure we have this and it's got to be green friendly and it's got to that. And all of a sudden you're like, you can't, there is no affordable housing. So you just end up like living like a slumlord. It's terrible. So, and again, like the pricing, all this stuff about prices and stuff like that. Did you see this, the meme that went around? This lady was like, I found this so hilarious. She's like, can someone explain to me in crayon how inflation keeps going down, but we continue to live in the most expensive timeline in our lifetime? And this guy says, like, he takes her up on the challenge. She's like, sure.
With a crayon?
I used to weigh 200 pounds. In 2020, I gained 5 pounds. In 2021, I gained 11 pounds. In 2022, I gained 9 pounds. In 2023, I gained 6 pounds. This year, I only gained 3 pounds. So my weight gain is down.
Oh my gosh.
But I weigh 234 pounds.
I love that. Even I can understand that.
Well, I was trying to explain to a friend over the weekend. He's like, I'm out of the loop on all this stuff. Like, what's going on? I'm like, basically, inflation is the biggest theft and most immoral thing that a government can do to its people right now, because it robs you of buying power. And yeah. I was going through the decline of Rome with him, which is like, shout out to, you know, Ave Maria people. It's like, he got that. But I was like, you know, you get the denarius, and the denarius used to be this much gold. And then they're like, well, we need to fund some more war. So we're going to melt down the denarius and we're going to put less percentage of gold in it. And then because people are addicted to doing that kind of thing, like we're addicted to spending money right now. It's like, well, we're going to melt it down again, and we're going to put less percent in it. We're going to melt it down again. And we're going to put less. And then of course, Rome gets too expanded, can't fund any of the mercenaries to protect it, and the empire falls. And I was like, okay, so here's a graph. And I showed him a graph of, United States deficit spending, which of course just blows up under Reagan. Yeah. And I'm like, everyone since Reagan has been obsessed with melting our gold coin, basically. And of course, like, that's too simplistic because we have the Fed and we moved off the gold standard and everything like that. But we are spending, and the red is just unbelievable how much. And Trump did it, Biden did it, Obama did it. No one is, safe from my criticism here. Like, you are not safeguarding the people. You're robbing people's ability to live a free life, to be able to afford things. Like, that's the best thing you can do for your populace. We get in arguments over everything else, but at its core, do you have enough money to support yourself? Can you achieve what you want to achieve? And that's been America's shining strength always, was that you can come to the land of opportunity. You can start a business easily. You can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of wealth. In cases we're very generous, where people come here basically just to make wealth and send it back home to countries where you don't have the ability to do so. And they're thankful just to be making what most Americans would consider like a poverty wage, because that's better than what they have there. Like, what are those places? Those places are Venezuela. Those places are Soviet Russia. Those places are places that have done the price control deal, right? They've done the price control deal. They've done communists. They've done centralized planning, and it never works. It always leads to black markets. It always leads to bread lines. And it's like, how hard is it for people to understand this? And one thing that I've been frustrated about too is people like, don't call her Comrade Kamala. The communist line is not going to work because no one understands what communism is anymore. And I actually really disagree with that. Maybe I was the last generation to get a good education on what communism is. I didn't get a rosy picture, right? Like, I left school understanding like, yep, I see what happens to people under communism. They turn into poor atheists. And I don't want anything to do with that.
It's funny too, because like some of the liberals on Twitter are like, don't you, oh my gosh, Republicans are calling her a communist. I'm like, get a new playbook. You've been doing this every year since 1980. And I'm like, some guy is like, really? You've been calling Republicans Nazis and they've been defeated 80 years ago. So why don't you shut your mouth? But what you're saying about this is important, because the understand, like, having a sound dollar, a sound currency is so important. Why? Because the poor, those who are on fixed incomes, they get hurt the most. Middle class, lower middle class, all that. We count on the fact that $1 today should be worth $1 tomorrow and next year, okay? Or at least 97 cents or 98 cents, right?
Right.
But what we've seen is, and I just put this graph in there, you can show it. This woman explains the money supply has increased by 38%. There are 38% more dollars in this economy than there were 5 years ago. 38%. So what does that tell you? Why are prices so high? Well, duh. Like, there's more money out there and it's chasing more things. And the people who were able to see what was going on, they were able to move their money into assets that were inflation resistant, let's say. They made out pretty well. But a lot of families, hey, look, I'm one of those, middle class families. I don't have, let me just move my stocks from here to there. Like, what? Like, I mean, I'm trying to stash money away, but I'm not. Look, I went into a life of nonprofit work here. I'm not
exactly, Joshua. You're talking about the middle class. We're not even talking about the poorest of the poor.
The money supply has gone up. There's 38% more dollars in this economy than there were 5 years ago, and we all have more dollars. And if we're not more productive, then the question is, what is happening? We're all bidding for the same stuff, and we're going to have to bid more dollars to get what we want, because everyone's got more dollars.
Except those on fixed income. Right. Except those on a fixed income. So they get left behind. It's the poor and I like this graph too, because it's showing, I think the two bottom lines are the Kroger company, right? So grocery store.
Yeah.
And then you see the money. So they've increased, I can't quite read. I think it's like 29%.
Well, her point is Kroger raised revenue directly in line with their expenses, and then their pace was actually slower than the growth of the money supply. So if anything,
they should have raised
companies are trying to do what they can because they see their customers hurting.
So if I could explain the graph for the audio listeners too, we're looking at three lines here. So the purple line is the Kroger Co. total revenue, and then the Kroger Co. total expenses is the yellow, orangish line here. They're both at around
right in line with each other.
They're right at about 23%, both of them. They've moved almost simultaneously. There's an economic term for moving in the same way.
Not a lot of fat there. Not a lot of profit.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And then you get the blue line, which is the US M2 money supply, which is increased by 38%. So we're talking about a 15% delta here. And on the graph, we're seeing it's much higher than the purple and yellow lines. So it's not a price gouging thing. Like these.
No.
And also, I don't even like the rhetoric from Kamala Harris to demonize businesses. Like, how is that? I don't even know how that's building bridges with businesses anyway. Like, don't you want grocery stores to be profitable and feed people? Right? I mean, what, to get votes, I guess? I mean,
well, look, customer goes into the grocery store and they're trying to buy milk and their eggs and their family's hurting. And they're like, gosh, why are they charging me twice as much money for milk and eggs that they did 2 years ago? And they get mad about it. And here are politicians who are responsible for why this is like this, because look, we didn't have these price gouges, these price spikes, 5, 10, 20 years ago. They've only happened during the Biden administration. And so the Biden-Harris Democrats are like, they've got to find a boogeyman. Like, doesn't that make you mad how much more milk and eggs and bread cost? Like, yeah. And they're like, darn Kroger, it's their fault. And I always love that argument, that escape. It's like, really? Is it because Kroger's just super selfish, super greedy? And the Democrats are like, yes, Kroger and Walmart, they're so greedy and they're so selfish. And I'm like, why weren't they selfish when Trump was president?
It's not how it works, Josh.
It's a good question.
How come they're only greedy when you guys print out way too much money?
Now, another point I'd like to make too, because Josh, you're of course, like, you watch what you spend at the grocery store, right? You're not a millionaire, but like, for people that truly live paycheck to paycheck, how devastating inflation is to someone like that, where I could buy, 2 dozen eggs last year. This year, I got to cut it down to 1 dozen eggs because prices have doubled.
Dude, I get it.
If I want to pay for my medical bills, if I want to pay for insurance, and like, think about all the other costs that are associated with living. So it must be so frustrating. It is very frustrating to me. Let's just put that out there, to see these kind of like sleight of hand tricks to win votes, demonize the wrong people in a simplistic way that's not even legitimate. And then also like forgiving billions of dollars in student loan debt to people who probably have their 3rd PhD in some BS degree. Well, I have to sacrifice things that I want to do to be able to provide. And I'm firmly in the middle class. I'm not even at a point where I'm living paycheck to paycheck, which is a huge blessing. But there's a significant portion of the country that live there. Or people that are older, maybe retired, and can't adjust how they live right now. Maybe weren't able to save for retirement. Like, it affects such a significant portion of the country that, like, it really just righteous anger. Politicians need to stop playing games with the money supply. And so I think this thing by Kamala Harris set off all the wrong bells, because people, I think, see it for what it is. A lot of people see this for what it is. Like, this doesn't feel right. Okay, you get the communist connection, but also you've screwed me over for 3 years now. Like, why is everything inflated now? It wasn't under Trump. And the answer is the Inflation Reduction Act, which poured trillions of dollars in the economy. So I hope that people are mad for the right reasons here. It's an easy explanation once you get past the first level. So we got a little bit of evergreen talk here. And now, first off, shout out to everyone in the chat. I even have some people in the chat that are like crusaders on YouTube, which I appreciate. Guys, if you like the show, they're saying you got to like the episode, which is very,
thanks guys.
podcasty influencer speak, which I despise, but it does help us out a lot. So if you guys enjoy the show, go ahead and hit like on YouTube, subscribe if you're not subscribed right now, and leave us reviews, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So thank you guys for a little help there, because I hate doing that. But we have evergreen. It's time to say goodbye for a lot of parents to college kids going away to college. Josh, I know you feel this very personally. Erika, you got to send one back. I have, 16 years for that.
Are you still in college?
I graduated.
It's personal for Pogo too.
Yeah, it's personal. I just went away. No, it's funny. I was joking about that. I'm like, remember when summer used to like mean something? Now it's just like, all right, now I work and it's light outside. Before it'd be like, all right, time to turn up. So
wait just a little bit longer, and then as a parent, you're like, oh, thank goodness summer's over.
Not if you homeschool, Josh. Okay, so if you have anyone sending away, so just sending anyone away in that position, let us know in the chat. But for Josh and Erika, how are you guys feeling? School around the corner. Any tips for staying in touch with kids going away to college? How are you guys feeling?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I think this year's actually, so last year we sent away our oldest to college for the first time, saying goodbye. And I was in a kind of funny position last August. I, I 2 weeks before we sent her away, I found out I was pregnant with our 8th child, 7th living baby. And so when she actually left the house, I was so sick that I was really not even registering that she was gone. And of course, like I missed her and everything, but I don't think I had the same emotional reaction that like a lot of moms have when the first one leaves the house. And she went pretty far away. So we're in Connecticut. She went to Michigan. That's pretty far. So I actually feel like I'm having a harder time this fall, like she's leaving in a few days. And we had such a wonderful summer. She came home for the summer. She worked from home and we were able to just spend time together. Everyone enjoyed the baby so much. He changed so much. And now she's leaving. I think I'm just personally going to have it's just going to be a harder ripping of the duct tape off the skin. Is that a good analogy? Band-Aid off the wound. That's what I'm trying to say.
That works.
So yeah, I think it's going to be a little harder this year. But at the same time, she landed in a really good place. It was a great fit, the school for her. And so having that confidence that she's going back to a place where she has been very happy and very well formed and cared for, that helps tremendously.
You said the baby changed for sure, obviously.
Oh my gosh.
Did you notice changes in your daughter as well after going away to college and coming back?
Yeah, just a maturity. And again, we were so blessed that she first year found the right place for her. And I think her appreciation of her time at home with her family this summer was beautiful to behold, that she still likes us, even though you can also tell she's got one foot out the door at this point. So yeah, it was definitely just a maturing in a really good way for her. We're really blessed with her choices she's made. So
I remember what good food was like when I came back home.
She commented on that. Like that's something that is universal to the college student. Like it was the same 40 years ago, it was the same 20 years ago. And even today they come home and she's like, Mom, this is so delicious.
Right.
Like, it's frozen meatballs. Like, it's so good. Yeah.
Josh, how are you feeling? How are you feeling right now?
Well, it's a big difference between my wife and I. I mean, she is very emotional about this, and she's very antsy about the upcoming week as we're going to do our family vacation leading up to it. So you won't see me on the LOOPcast for a few episodes, and so we're going to go out west and have fun with it, and then drop her off at college at University of Mary in Bismarck, North Dakota. And I'm excited for Annie. All the different classes she gets to take, and the people she'll get to meet, and talking with professors. I remember what that was like. I loved it. I loved college. I loved everything about it. And I'm just excited for her. Whereas my wife is more just, preparing herself to cry an entire river.
Because this is the oldest, right?
Yeah. So the first one out of the nest, so.
Yeah, it's a big change.
Yeah.
But it's so good. And she's going to such a wonderful school.
What am I worried about?
Yeah, she's going to be great.
Yeah. No, it's pretty sweet.
It's like release the Mercers. The Mercers are going out into the world. It's going to be
their influence
great.
shall grow.
Turn this country around.
Back when I was in college, I was a libertarian. And the one professor said, if there were 1,000 Mercers, libertarians would rule the world.
I don't know about all that.
It's pretty funny though.
But
you're like, I can do 6. How about 6? That'd be
6 is the best I got.
Let's go.
Yeah. Happy start to the semester for a lot of college students. I know, we just lost our babysitter. She's going abroad with Franciscan, and that sounds pretty awesome. So shout out Franciscan. But moving on to the Twilight Zone now. I think Erika's the most prepared. What you got, Erika?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I did my little news looking at everything last night, trying to catch back up. And turns out things did not improve in the United Kingdom. Oh, my gosh. No. So, it turns out last year. So we covered the riots in the UK and how, following following some of these, there were massive arrests. People were being jailed. 2 guys received like 2 or 3 year prison sentences for posting on social media that, it's time to take back our country, get out on the streets. Not even anything specific, but the punishment so disproportional to the quote unquote crime of posting online. They took it up a notch even. So the Home Secretary over in the UK, this woman named Yvette Cooper, she comes out with a plan for the citizens of the United Kingdom to be able to report each other, family members, people in your neighborhood who you see as a potential extremist, someone in danger of being radicalized. Michael Schellenberger did a great job of covering this over at his Substack, and it's so 1984. We keep bringing up 1984, but it fits. So he's saying, he shows the screenshot further down the thread. Look how easy the British government has made it. You can report online material promoting terrorism or extremism. And of course, if you dig into the website, you start to think, okay, well, maybe they're trying to prevent Islamic terrorism since they have such a rise in, Islamic extremists coming over on the boats. No, this is for people who are promoting things like, maybe we should put a cap on immigrants coming into the country. Maybe we should, not trans the kids. It's so predictable, but it's very easy to report. So
this is kind of like the Tim Walz snitch line.
Yeah, this is like the Tim Walz snitch line on steroids. And in fact, I didn't get to it, but I'm going to go in and read. Michael Schellenberger is talking about how Tim Walz and some of these governing bodies over in the UK have been working together. So stay tuned. I intend to bring this up again Wednesday.
That's exactly what I want to hear.
It's pretty chilling. But yep, snitch lines in the UK, they're a thing.
Okay, I saw a dude getting sentenced on one of these for like a Facebook post from a judge in a wig. Now, respectfully, no grown man in a wig should be sentencing anyone to anything, let alone for Facebook posts.
Is a storied British tradition. I just think it's funny that they have chosen to keep the wig, but totally gut their British heritage. I'm like, what? Why?
No.
Yeah, like you'll see people taking the oath.
Overruled. If you're wearing a wig and you're trying to sentence me for a Facebook post, overruled. 1776 called
for 3 years.
Said you have no jurisdiction over me. Welcome to freedom. Gosh, man. Yeah, anyway. The UK is just wild.
So keeping an eye on the UK. That's what I'm doing here. And it's the Twilight Zone over there, period.
All right. Josh?
Well, so, there's a clip from J.D. Vance back in 2021. He was first running for the Senate, where he's talking about immigration. And he talked about these massive waves of Italian, Irish, German immigrants, and they had problems because they'd be in enclaves, and there'd be higher amounts of crime in those neighborhoods. And the political solution to that was to try to let's kind of chill out on the number of immigrants we bring into this country and just kind of tone it down. Well, Father James Martin.
Oh, no.
I have terrible news. I'm blocked by Father James Martin, so I'm not going to be able to show it.
He got a little snippy about it, and he said, my Italian and Irish immigrant grandparents and great-grandparents would disagree about being criminals. Also, it would behoove J.D. Vance, a Catholic, to remember that nearly all those Italian and Irish immigrants were Catholics and helped build the church he is a member of. There's a little snippy, response, which is the kind of snippy response I expect from James Martin. But I thought it was pretty interesting. Numbers USA is an organization that's very much in favor of regulating our immigration to be more normal. And they responded to Father James Martin in a way I thought was actually, they pretty much nailed it.
Sweet.
If you know most people don't know former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. She's a Black Democrat from Texas. And she said this many years ago. She died in 1996, but it was a great quote. We decry hostility and discrimination towards immigrants as antithetical to the traditions and interests of the country. At the same time, we disagree with those who would label efforts to control immigration as being inherently anti-immigrant. Rather, it is both a right and a responsibility of a democratic society to manage immigration so it serves the national interest. Boom. Obvious. No duh.
That's
and it was
awesome.
a black Democrat who understood that. Back when, sensible people in both parties could say, yeah, let's, not be stupid. But the modern Democratic Party loves waves of immigration, and the Chamber of Commerce type Republicans love cheap labor, so they go along with it.
Yeah, I mean,
who's going to fight for us, though?
Here's the clip you're talking about, and I saw a lot of lib Catholics saying, first off, I love the simplification in the beginning here. Harris insults the Knights of Columbus. That's
insults them.
A little bit short on detail
way to
there.
Downplay that.
And then Vance insults Irish, Italian, German immigrants while praising laws that banned undesirable Catholics and Asians. And Vance is pro-Catholic. Get real. Trumpism is a sick cult. As a Catholic, I'm voting Kamala Harris to get Trump and Trumpism out of the GOP. Now,
Don Eden,
guys,
pray for her. She is a wackadoodle.
Yeah, but guys, Kamala Harris didn't insult the Knights of Columbus. She said, if you're a Knight of Columbus, you are unfit to serve in a federal capacity. What?
Exactly.
Because it's a Catholic extremist secret.
You can't be a judge.
That's a little bit more than insulting, okay? When you're on the board.
Have you ever been a member of the Knights of Columbus?
Seriously. And then also, Kamala Harris, a little bit more than that. She supports Catholic doctors being forced to perform abortions. She supports forcing Catholic school teachers to teach gender ideology. First vice president to visit Planned Parenthood is running on restoring Roe v. Wade. So a little short in detail, Tom, there.
You're right. The first vice president to visit an abortion facility. And you know who was there when, as vice president, she visited that abortion facility? Do you know what other politician was there?
Was it Elizabeth Warren?
I do. It was Tim Walz.
Oh, yes. Was it really?
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
Oh, gosh, the gang getting back together. Jeez. Tim Walz is the worst.
The death cult for you.
It really is the party of death. Yeah, it's the party of death. When you talk about it,
like she visits an abortion facility, all these things you mentioned, she thinks you shouldn't be a federal judge and a member of the Knights of Columbus. And Don Eden is saying, I need a vote for Kamala Harris. I feel like joking with, like Trump said, like Mexico, they're not sending our best. Like the Catholic libs, they're not even sending their best anymore. Like I got a report coming on this soon. It's a joke to me. It's funny to even equate like, some comments JD Vance made in a podcast that were probably true. Like there were a lot of criminals in those group of people. Equating that to actual legislation passed by a person in a position of power that is expressly anti-Catholic is hilarious. Like now we're just going to equate podcast comments with what you do with when you have power. Whole thing just, I couldn't even. Okay, so I got mine now. And I actually was going to do more like Tim Walz stuff because he creeps me out. But I've done enough of that. So we're switching over to, so this is the communications director for John Fetterman. And this is, I see this and I never understand when I see it. And so every time I see it, I always talk about it. When you have a job, I feel like rule number one in a job is do not publicly criticize your boss. That just it never plays well. I don't know why people do it. I think social media kind of made it popular. You'll get fired. Right? It just seems like the most obvious of all time. So we get John Fetterman's communications director. Here's a quote. Quote, I don't agree with them about Israel and Gaza. Kerry Adams, Fetterman's communications director, told me in a phone call after my interview with the senator ended. I have a sense that his international views are a lot less nuanced than my generation, because when he was growing up, it was might makes right. And for my generation and younger, of course, are the ones protesting this. They have a much more nuanced view of the region, Adams said. I've been a reporter since the summer of 1998 when I covered Bill Clinton's trip to Martha's Vineyard for the Vineyard Gazette. This was the first time I've ever encountered anyone on Capitol Hill or anywhere else, on the record, off the record, on background, whatever, criticizing, quote, the principal. Now, First of all, I mean, the person that, this is a spokesman and they're criticizing their own boss. That's just unheard of.
We're not even talking about just like a random employee. Like this is the communications director. You're in charge for getting out what your senator thinks, not what you think. You're hired literally to do that. Like I'm not even talking figuratively or kind of. This is your entire job. Now, this story does have a ending that makes a lot of sense. So let me guess. What happened to any guesses on what happened to the communications director?
Oh my goodness. Well,
I think she got fired.
Yeah, bingo. So we have a job opening app happened to open up right after job opportunity. Pennsylvania senator seeks a communications director based in Washington, D.C.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, she needs to update her LinkedIn because I don't think she's employed there anymore. I'm looking at it right now.
Like, yeah, remember whose name is on the door. Like when you go and you want to give your nuanced take on the region. As I guarantee that person was in their 20s, which I am too.
She has quite the pedigree too. Carrie Adams, she has worked for Representative Barbara Lee, Democrat, California, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Louise Slaughter. I mean,
all the all-stars.
The all-stars. She's been around the block.
Well,
I guess
she's really
nuanced.
She's probably not. She's nuanced. She understands the nuance. Although
nuanced.
I think of Pelosi, like talk about the queen of saying in public that she agrees with stuff that makes her look good, but then in private being an absolute savage and removing the literal president from power. So Pelosi's better at the game than Carrie Adams is.
She's
apparently
the prime minister or the speaker.
The prime minister.
Speaker emeritus. Yeah. So we got a lot of DNC fun coming up, but yeah, that was a solid show. Welcome back, Erika. Glad to have you. And then we send off Josh onto his Western adventures. I was thinking it would be fun to just like have Josh call in and like rant about something, and then we can just play it. Like we need like a Josh rant section of the show when you're not here.
I can do that.
If you have anything you just really want to rip off, just hop in front of an iPhone and we'll play it for the audience. I'm going to have to pre-screen it, of course. But yeah.
Best.
Thank you guys for joining here in the chat. We appreciate you so much.
I'll just head down the highway to see what's going on at the convention. Probably.
I was going to say, step out,
do
do some interviews. Love to see that. It'd be great for socials. But yeah, if you want to help out the show, subscribe, like the episode, share us around. We appreciate it. You can email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. Best way to help us out, become a champion. Shout out to all of our supporters. It's the only way we can do this. You're the lifeblood of everything we do. So you can do that at catholicvote.org/champions. And pray for us. It's always the best thing you can do. St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Pray for us. Thank you guys for joining this great show. And we will see you guys on Wednesday. Looking forward to it. Enjoy your day.